Sweden is known to be a fantastic economy, a really strong economy, and also historically, Sweden has opened the gate to basically all the countries in the world. In fact, Sweden has been the first country to have a central bank. Sveriges Riksbank, which is the Swedish central bank, has been founded in 1668. It's the oldest central bank in the world. And as we know, now every single country has a central bank. It is the standard, and basically everybody followed those steps. The first thing that you realize when you come in Sweden is almost everybody, let's say everybody in Sweden is well off. And this is really special. To me, I'm used to countries where there are very rich people and there are very, very poor people. I've seen this in Italy, but I've also seen this in the US, I've seen it especially Hong Kong, India. Everywhere you go, it seems to have people that are very poor and people that are very rich. This is not my opinion of Sweden. Of course, there are differences in Sweden, but the differences between them is very, very subtle. This is also expressed by what is called the Gini coefficient. So I've been looking on internet a little bit, and this Gini coefficient is basically a number between either in percentage or between 0 to 1 that expresses basically how equal income in a country is. If it's 0, everybody has exactly the same income, and if it's 1, one person owns all the income of a country. Sweden is around 27% or 0.27, which is a very, very, very low Gini coefficient. It means that equality in Sweden is very, very good. But at the same time, you would say, let's say a doctor and a cleaner, they cannot make the same amount of money, isn't it? Well, this is where things get interesting, because yes, a doctor can earn a lot of money and the cleaner doesn't earn as much money. But at the same time, if we're going to compare with the US, a doctor in the US or a physician in the US, on average, makes around $300,000 a year. In Sweden, it would be about $100,000 a year. So you have 1/3 of the income. So the highest income is not as high as it could be in the US. At the same time, the low income, so a cleaner in the US, would be around, for what I understood, $28,000 a year. And in Sweden, it would be around $25,000 a year. So you basically have almost the same lower income, even though the higher income are basically more squeezed in Sweden. You don't have as high of an income. Now, at the same time, what you have in Sweden is that Sweden has really, really high taxes. We're talking about extremely high taxes, especially for people who come from the US or Switzerland or, some fiscal paradises like small countries. I named Hong Kong before, for example. Sweden has extremely high taxes, and those are gradually increasing. Basically, depending on how much you make, the tax will increase as the more money you make. Now, this, in many countries, it is just 2, 3, or 4, a few blocks. So you're in a block, and as soon as you make one money over the threshold, it could be $1, €1, whatever, you start paying the higher salary. So you want to just keep yourself slightly below the margin so you pay less taxes. In Sweden, however, this is gradual. So you have like hundreds of steps. So the difference between making a specific amount of money or $100 or euros more is not going to be as big, which means that, it doesn't really matter to pay that 0.01% tax more for that extra income. At least psychologically, it doesn't. At the same time, the lowest tax that you will pay, income tax that you will pay in Sweden, that is high. And this depends on the municipality. So 29% is the lowest you will pay, but you can pay as a minimum 35% if you're in some of the poorest, probably northernmost municipalities in Sweden. But if you make a lot of money, you can pay above 55% of your taxes. Almost 60% of your income goes to taxes. This makes Sweden an extremely, extremely rich government. Now, this is a lot of money. If you don't think about what they give you, well, these taxes go to welfare, education, goes to healthcare, it goes to making sure that people can pay out rent, that if you get children, you get subsidies. Everything is highly subsidized in Sweden. If you lose your job, you will keep getting money and you will basically be helped to find a new job. Everything goes to basically making so that people can get back to either a job or being productive or having their own income. Also, what this does is that since maybe a doctor will earn 4 times as much, so we talked before an example of $100,000 a year for a doctor and about 25,000 for a cleaner. After taxes, the cleaner will have about 20,000, but if you have an income of a doctor, you will pay almost 40% of your income in taxes, which means that by the end of the year, you who make less money will pay less taxes, but you will receive the same help from the state, the same healthcare. You most likely receive more because you're gonna need help, for example, for your rent or for your children or for education. But what this also does is that squeezing this difference between the two income levels, you also create 2 very interesting factors or phenomena in society. The first is that you don't have extra expenses. So you don't have to pay for healthcare, you don't have to pay for education. You can basically have everything almost free. So this money that you have after taxes, you don't have to put them aside to think about the future, to think about your children, to think about their education or their potential. This also means that you're not limiting people's education. So people can go to university independently how much money they have. This is not the case in many countries. We know it's the same in Italy, where I'm from, but it's even though to a much lesser degree, but in the UK or even more in the US, you don't have to go into debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to become, for example, a doctor or whatever you want to do. This also means that people are more creative, and we will talk about this later. You can basically do whatever you're motivated to do. This also means, of course, that if you have a doctor who comes from Sweden, you know that you're not going to make as much money, and it's a lot of work being a doctor, right? It's not an easy job, it's not easy times, it's not easy hours, meaning that people who actually become doctors are, on average, way more motivated than people in other countries that they do it more for money than the passion. Of course, there is still passion, right? I'm not judging anybody. So basically, not having money or not being super rich is not an obstacle. It doesn't hinder you from getting the education you want, or maybe trying whatever career you want. Whether you want to become a doctor, you want to become a cleaner, whether you want to become a musician or an architect, it's really up to you. Or you want to start a YouTube channel, you can still do it. And this is just fantastic. It's something that I enjoy about Sweden. The economy leads to a strong economy, a really great and bright future for Sweden, and people are not judgmental. You can really do whatever you want. And I think this is something that other countries can definitely learn from Sweden. But before we leave, there's also another thing. Yes, there's really high taxes in Sweden, but those taxes are all on the income. So if you make money, you'll be taxed on that, because every money you get in, you pay a portion to the state so that you can get all the services you get. On the other hand, Sweden does not tax properties. It did before, but it does not anymore. So wealth is not taxed. Whatever this is inheritance, whatever this is property taxes, or this is just in general wealth taxes, it's not there. So you do not risk to have, for example, a lot of properties that you pay taxes on, but those properties do not bring income to you. It's actually most of the time it's an expense, especially if you don't rent it out. So this is what Sweden has done, and I think it's fantastically smart. Sweden has created an income for the government that is based on the income of people. If you make money, you give money to the state. If you don't make money, you don't have to pay anything. So now it's up to you. Let me know what you think about this. First about Sweden, like how Sweden has become one of the richest countries in the world, just basically by giving people the possibility to be themselves and be happy at work and be therefore more productive and more passionate. But also, I want to know what you think about this new format. Is this helpful? Is this something more you want to see? Why not subscribe for the next video? That's going to be about how Sweden is a fantastic country for businesses and starting your own business, which I definitely think you might find inspiring, to say the least. Bye bye!